Hey, Earthies, nice job yesterday. I saw your discussions, I saw your ed puzzles, so I'm super proud of you. I know it's weird when things aren't going as you planned, me not being there, so I appreciate you taking the time and doing your awesome work that you always do. If you are not done with the discussion, you can still do that. If you're not done with the ed puzzle, you can do that today or tomorrow. Not a problem. You don't have, there's no homework. Don't think about doing any of these things for homework this week. Okay. As usual. If you did the discussion, but you don't have a grade, check my comments. I'm probably waiting for you to do something that I asked you to do. And discussions are weird. I can't give you a grade because it'll count that grade no matter what. And I didn't want it to count. So that's why it's being entered as a 0. It felt really weird giving you a 0 for doing awesome work, but just realized that's what it did. So today and tomorrow, it's going to be a regular assignment and not a discussion so that I can actually give you points and then not count it toward your grade the way we normally do. Let's take a look at what we learned yesterday about the balloon. There was a little bit of confusion about the balloon and why it did what it did. Like, why did it blow up when you removed the air, when that vacuum chamber removed the air out of that box? And I think the confusion came with maybe what you were talking about. For example, in this description, this happened a lot. Somebody says the balloon expanded when it was on the vacuum chamber because it had a lot of air pressures that made the air strong and it just kept expanding. So I wasn't sure if you meant, is the air pressure strong inside the balloon or was the air pressure strong in the vacuum chamber on the outside of the balloon? So that was a little bit confusing. And some other folks said this. The balloon expanded when put inside the vacuum chamber because the chamber had no air inside, so the pressure of the balloon couldn't go back inside the balloon, which I was a little confused about. This is why the yellow balloon popped, because the pressure with the air in the chamber was too much to handle. So then I was like, okay, because this happened a lot too, that students thought, oh, the pressure, because when you say that air was in the chamber was too much to handle, it sounds like there was too much pressure while the balloon was blowing up. And that was what's causing the balloon to expand. So we want to make sure that we're really clear about what was going on inside that chamber. Remember that the vacuum is taking the air out. So if you're taking the air out of the chamber, then you're technically increasing the pressure. Like, once you suck that air out of the chamber, are you increasing the air pressure or did it decrease the air pressure? So what we really did was we decreased the air pressure. When we sucked all the air out, we took away the air. So the air could not push on it anymore, right? And this explanation I thought was really good. It says the balloon got really big because there was no air pressure pushing on the air in the balloon, so it was able to expand. Ah, nice. And a lot of people said that. A lot of people talked about how when you took the air out, that decreased the pressure. You removed the pressure on the balloon, and so it was able to expand and fit that whole entire container, right? That's why it became a square. Weird. Because it was pushing up against the edges of the box, right? Here's another answer that I thought was really great. They said the balloon expanded when it was put into the chamber because there was no air in the chamber for the balloon to push back. So when the air was removed, that's when the balloon started to expand because the pressure was coming out. Yes. Hopefully that makes sense. Even if you didn't get it yesterday, I hope that this is starting to make sense to you a little bit more. Some people went above and beyond and made a connection to what we learned last week with the balloons inside of the bottles. So remember, we had balloons and I tried to blow them up inside the bottles last week. So this person made a great connection back to that. When I asked, were you surprised at what happened to the balloons? Why or why not? This person says no, because we learned that with the water bottle, when taking the air out of it, it made the balloon expand. Yeah. So remember, when I there was that little hole at the bottom of that one bottle with the yellow balloon in it, and I sucked all the air out of that tiny little hole, and then the balloon expanded. That's exactly the same thing, right? We created a vacuum inside that bottle last week. I just didn't call it a vacuum, but that's really what it is. A vacuum pump sucks all the air out of something. And that's what I did to that bottle last week. And that's what this vacuum pump did inside that box. So it was exactly the same thing. So bravo to that person that wrote that comment. Nice job. One question that a lot of people asked was, why didn't the orange balloon pop? Like, why did the orange balloon pop, but the yellow balloon did pop? Like, what was the difference between the two balloons? And I mean, they're different balloons, obviously. So there are a lot of different things. Maybe the orange balloon was made out of a thicker, like latex rubber stuff, and it resisted popping. Maybe uh, maybe the yellow balloon was a smaller balloon, and so when it blew up, it got to its breaking point faster than the orange balloon. Maybe the orange balloon was just a bigger balloon. I don't know. Like, there are a lot of different possibilities, right? So I thought that was a really good question to ask, and a lot of you guys asked that. Another question that people asked was, what would happen if it had been water in the balloon? What if there was a balloon size as a balloon size as a person, like a huge balloon in a vacuum chamber? And then what would happen if you put other things in the vacuum chamber? So some of you noticed, if you didn't, I added some links to people blowing up marshmallows and marshmallow peeps and a bunch of balloons inside of a vacuum chamber. So if you want to check those out, I included some links in the discussion. You can go back and just kind of look through the discussion and find those, because there are some really cool videos of people doing things like that. If you had water in the balloon, I would imagine that it would just make a big mess of water inside of that vacuum chamber, right? Because as soon as that balloon burst, then you'd have water all over the place. If it didn't, it would just be a water balloon inside the vacuum chamber, right? And then the last question here, what would it happen if the balloon was filled with a specific gas? Whoops. Such as helium, oxygen, carbon dioxide, or sulfur hexafluoride. I don't even know what that is. But I thought those were really great questions too. I don't know the answers to those, but I just thought I'd share some of the really awesome questions that you guys came up with. So nice job. And then finally, nobody mentioned this. They did mention it in the video, but did anybody notice that the yellow balloon, when it popped, it didn't make a sound? You couldn't hear the pop. Did anybody notice that? It's because you sucked all the air out. And in order to hear things, you have to have something for the sound to travel through, including air. Even though you can't see it, sound will only travel through something. And when you remove all of the air from that chamber, from that box with the vacuum pump, you've taken everything out of it. And so sound doesn't travel through nothing. That's why you can't hear anything in outer space, because there's no air in outer space. So I hope that answered some of your questions. I hope you had fun with that yesterday, and now you can watch the next video for today's assignment.